I cannot believe that this is going to be a positive review. Oh my god, I'm so excited that this is a positive review. I actually ended up liking this season. I was so down on this after Act 1. After the first 7 episodes dropped. I was so down on it. And we're going to talk about it. I still have issues with this season, but I felt like the last 2 episodes really brought things together in a really great way. I'm seeing online that a lot of people have it the other way around, and I feel like a lot of the issues that people have with the last 2 episodes are actually issues from earlier in the season that maybe didn't quite manifest until the last 2 episodes, because I felt like they really tied things up as best they could. By the way, this is Leaky Lou. Watch this video at 1.5x speed. Get more bang for your time bucks, baby. So, anyways, yeah, these last 2 episodes were incredible. I mean, Eddie playing the heavy metal solo in the Upside Down to save the world. It's like she was destined for an alternate dimension. I mean, it doesn't get better than that. The running up that hill with the Stranger Things remix, you know, when they're hitting Vecna with the fire. I mean, that was some god tier shit. There were some incredible moments. Such great moments. I mean, like, really, really, really awesome. But more importantly, I think that a lot of my issues with the season, while not fully resolved, got taken care of in a way that made me a lot happier with this season. Basically, I'll just say it right now. I'm a character guy. I will say it in every video I ever make, any review you ever see from me. Pretty much, I will argue that most TV shows, movies, at least this genre, sci-fi, fantasy type deal, is built on its characters. I think Stranger Things, to a certain extent, is also built on its mystery. But it's still really built on its characters. And I think that this season did a disservice to a lot of characters. I think it actively harmed the development of some characters. And I think for a lot of the other ones, it just misused them. It didn't use them in the best way that these characters can be used. In a way that plays to their strengths and plays to what we like about them. And instead puts them in situations where they don't have as much interesting stuff to do. I actually haven't watched Stranger Things since season 2. I didn't like it that much when I first saw it, and then I kind of just checked out of the show. I heard this season was really great, so I rewatched all of it in 2 days, and I was really, really into it. And then I got to season 4, and I was like, wait, this is supposed to be the good season, but I'm not enjoying this. But so I'm so glad, anyway, that it ended up getting tied up really well. Before we get into the character stuff, I will just also say, the bike scene where the 4 of them are on one side and the 4 of them on the other side, I mean, that's what you watch Stranger Things for. God tier. It was so awesome. The Star Wars reference where they're hanging out next to the door waiting for them to come through. Incredible. The ending of episode 8. We're just going through best moments. Here's the very last one, and I'm gonna get into it. I swear. Don't click away, please. Just stay. Hold on. This is the last one. The one where Eleven's like they're gonna die, and then it pans over to all of them, and they're in the car, and they're extremely silent, and it's like the night before the war. You know what I mean? It's like God, what is that? I want to say it's Henry V or something like that. And there's a monologue I had to learn for like school at one point when I was in drama, and like it's just about like the night before the battle, and like, I mean, God, it was just so, like, their complete silence, the looks on their faces, the fact that they know they're probably marching into certain death, even though the show doesn't really kill off its characters. I mean, it's just so awesome, and that, we'll talk. I have more to say about that, but I think that what that scene is, what is so great about that scene, and what I think I like, and what I think most people like in TV shows when it comes to characters, is we want to see capable characters. We want to see characters that have things they're good at and that have qualities that we admire, and we want to see them face challenges that are new and interesting and use those qualities, use those things, that the things in their toolbox, their character toolbox, whether it's relationships, skills, knowledge, etc., the things that we've grown to know that they have, in new and interesting ways that both develops them as a character and makes sense in how they take on this new challenge. And so I think capable characters is a really, really big point here that I'm going to keep driving home throughout this review. For example, I think that Robin got really, really misused this season, in the sense that in last season I felt she was so capable. She was such a capable character. She's the one who figured out the Russian code. There were multiple times where Robin was just like, she was a little quirky, she was a little, but she knew what she was doing, and she was driven. And maybe if she didn't, she was driven. That's what it was. She knew what she wanted, and she was going for it. And in this season, they turn her into a total joke. And so there's a lot of that going on here, where I just feel like sometimes the characters don't have really strong, capable qualities anymore. So anyway, let's get into the most let's get into it. I want to talk about. Let's start. I want to talk. I'm rambling. I watched this at 2 a.m. I have not slept. It is now 9 a.m. I've been getting all my notes together after the 4-hour watch along. So I'm sorry. I'm a little crazy right now. But let's start with 11, as I think is a really interesting, another example of characters being put in a place where they're not being utilized to the best of their abilities. And I wouldn't say this season. I think this season definitely actively harmed Robin's character development, for example. But an example of how they're just putting a character in a place where they're not best utilized is 11. I think the reason why we love 11 so much in this show is because so far her arc and her moments are about learning how to be happy, learning how to have friends, learning how to live a normal life as someone who has had such a traumatic and horrific childhood, while also being fucking adorable, right? Like being so just like, I mean, and Millie Bobby Brown is unbelievably great as an actress. I mean, her and Noah Schnapp are probably the two best child actors I've ever seen in my life, like by far. 11 is incredible, and her sort of like line deliveries where she's I missed you, like when she says that to Mike late in the season, just like those friends don't lie, like she still has that like captured animal feeling of when you first met her, but she's slowly integrating into the world, and it's beautiful to watch, and she's so adorable while she does it. And not only that, but she's a fucking badass while doing it all. You know what I mean? Like there's nothing more amazing in science fiction than an adorable badass. I'm looking at you, Groot, right? Like everyone loves Groot because he's an adorable badass. Even Groot in Guardians 1, right, is an adorable badass. He makes a little smile. 11 is an adorable badass, and you love to see her around her friends and growing as a person and moving forward and getting away from all of the shit she's been through. So the writers in this season want to do, because it's the penultimate season of a major TV show, the second to last season, they want to do this thing where they put the characters at their lowest before the final season, which I think is a good choice. And you want to take them out of their comfort zone as characters and take away the things they take for granted. So I understand the choice to take 11 away from her friends, take 11 away from all of these things that she's grown to know and love and trust over the last few seasons. Take away her powers, right? Who is 11 without her powers? It's like the writers want to ask that question, and that's an interesting question to ask. The problem is, in the same way that 11 has to discover who she is without her powers, you as writers have to discover what makes her interesting to us without her powers and without the things she takes for granted and without the normal crutches that make her interesting. So if you want to say, okay, I know that you like watching 11 develop as a character, but what if we take that away from her and have her do something else and put her in this really other tough situation? I'm like, okay, cool. But you have to make that as interesting as the other stuff, right? If you don't, then it's not as interesting. I mean, basically, right? Like, so you can make the tough choice, and they do this with a lot of characters in this season, to take them out of the comfort zone, put them in a place that's different than their normal niche. That's cool. But again, you've got to do that in a way where the new thing is just as interesting to us, in the same way that character needs to find themselves separate from their normal role. You as the writer do as well. So I'm driving that point home because I think it's going to be a major talking point throughout this video. So if we're illustrating that concept with 11, for example, and we're looking at some of these scenes where she's getting bullied, which I felt like were really out of place, really hated them. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in just a second. But, basically, I would imagine a conversation with me and the writer going something like, hey, I don't like watching 11 without her powers. I don't really enjoy that. And I know that they would say, well, we want to explore who she is without her powers. She's not just her powers. And I'm like, okay, cool. Let's watch that then. But if you really look at how that plays out with these bullying scenes and how it doesn't really get brought back, because then she immediately goes back into trying to get her powers back. I mean, basically, what we're kind of left with is that she's kind of helpless without her powers. She doesn't. I mean, she hits the girl with the roller skate, but it's framed as this bad thing, which we will definitely. I have a lot of things to say about that, but it doesn't answer that question in any real meaningful way, and so we're just kind of left with feeling like, okay, like 11 just, again, we didn't get this capable character that we love handling this new situation in a way that feels truthful with the tools that we know that she has. She just gets shit on for a while. You know what I mean? And so anyway, we'll talk more about that, but I guess that's just kind of a bit of an example. But before we do, I want to say that I think that most of the, or at least a lot of the issues with that in this season come from the season 3 ending. And I really, really liked season 3. It was my second favorite season beyond season 1, although I think this one's my new second favorite. But I think that season 3 ended really badly in 3 different ways. They did this 3 different times in season 3, what I'm talking about right now, which is 11 losing her powers, Hopper being dead, and Joyce moving away with Will and Jonathan and 11. I think even just, I mean, when you look at the moving away thing, the most interesting thing about the characters in Stranger Things is their relationships with each other. That is the number one most interesting thing. I mean, that's the reason why every finale ends up with them all finally coming together and working together, because we love to see them work together. So you want to move characters away, you want to kill off characters and put them in Russia, that's fine, but you're treading new ground, and you got to do that right, or we're left with something that's just not as interesting as what we normally have. And when it comes to 11, I think I just think that I think it ends well. I think almost most of this stuff ends pretty well. It almost feels like, honestly, it almost feels like this is a writing exercise where one person wrote 7 episodes and like purposefully like messed up a lot of things with certain characters, and then was like, hey, you have 4 hours of screen time to fix all these issues as best you can, and good luck. And the reason I say that is because I'm not happy with how the season ended in a lot of ways, but it felt like the last 2 episodes if we're taking the first 7 as canon, they happened, you can't change them, the last 2 feel like the best possible way to fix a lot of those issues that were in that season without changing anything. You know what I mean? It feels like a writing exercise almost. So like when we look at 11, again, I think it ended well, but basically this is a training arc for her, right? This is a training season, and I think that's really interesting. Actually, I like the idea that this is a training arc for her, where she learns to better use her powers. But I don't think that we needed any of the stuff with the kids. I don't think we needed any of the flashbacks. I don't think we needed her losing her powers. I don't think we needed any of that for this training arc to be good. I think the reason that all of that is in there, the reason the bullying is in there, the reason the all of the flashbacks, which I gotta say went on for too long for me. I was like, dude, I honestly don't care. It feels like a major step backwards for the character instead of a step forwards, because these were not questions that we had. We as far as we knew, understood everything about her time in Hawkins' lab. Before this season, basically, the narrative was she was one of the experiments. She originally didn't do very well on something, and the doctor was like, fuck her. And then she fucked up those 2 guards, and he was like, oh my god, I love you. You're amazing now. And he started working with her. And so, there's more to that now, but there were never any. There might have been questions about like who else was there, about 2 and 3 and 4 and all these other people, but there really was never. We never were wondering, man, I wonder what else happened there, because the show didn't really raise any of those questions. So it's not like they're answering or filling in blanks. They're bringing up new blanks about her past that we never had. At least I didn't have. And I just didn't think it was that interesting. I mean, it was really boring. And I gotta say, I'm gonna talk about the bullying for a second here, and these are very related. The bullying to me was just completely unnecessary. I don't know why we need to watch everyone laugh at 11 as she cries about the death of her dad. I don't know why we need to watch her be the embarrassing anime girl in front of the whole school, or watch kids circle her as they throw chocolate milk on her and push her to the ground. That stuff is just, I get it. If you want to put your character through some really terrible shit, you want to do things to characters that we love, That's fine, you kill off characters that we love. That can be a good thing when your favorite character dies in a really compelling way, or they go through stuff that you feel like is really compelling. So I'm not against them doing stuff like that, but where did it go? Why was it necessary? If you think back to the plot of this season, it was really only necessary because they had to set up the parallel between her getting bullied then and lashing out, and her getting bullied in these flashbacks and thinking that she's going to lash out, which all of that is only in service of setting us up with a red herring so that we can get the twist that it was actually one who did that. Really, I think that all of the bullying, the only thing it does is just serve as a red herring so that the twist hits harder. And I don't think you needed it. It was everything we don't want to watch Eleven go through. And, like I said earlier, it also just didn't make her look powerful. It didn't make her... She had really no real response except for hitting the girl in the face. And let's talk about that. Because if you are out there right now and you disagree with her decision to hit that girl with a roller skate, please speak up. Please speak up. I've watched a lot of videos about people responding to this. I've read through a lot of Reddit comments, talked to a lot of friends. I have not seen a single person who felt like what Eleven did was too far by hitting that girl in the face with a roller skate. No, fucking whatever. Fuck her shit up, okay? This is like serious... like abuse. You know what I mean? What they're doing to her. So to have that framed as this like, oh, this horrible thing that she did, and then to have to go through all of this like for the cops to like be arresting her and stuff. I mean, it's just not fun to watch, and it doesn't pay off in any meaningful way at all. I really, really did not like that. I think maybe actually an interesting way to do that scene would have been having her like hit the girl and have that be a triumphant moment, maybe. I mean, like, because even then that at least gives us some level of fight that she has in her, and it shows that she will still smack a hoe without her powers, that deserves it, right? I mean, because again, if she had hit her with an ice skate, maybe like they were joking about, like maybe that'd be a different story. But she hit her with a roller skate. I mean, what the fuck? Like, take your shit. You talking too much shit. You got to get hit for that. And then to top it all off, I got to talk about Mike here, as it relates to Eleven's story. And again, I think that a lot of Eleven stuff ended great, but I'm talking about her entire arc here. So I really got to talk about Mike. So I'm going to start at the end here with Mike's conversation with Will, which we're going to talk about Will. Such an incredible scene on Will's part. But I think that it was such a genius move for Mike to talk about the fact that he's actually just this random nerd that was there when Eleven really needed somebody and had nothing. I thought that was really, really great writing, because it's kind of what we're thinking in the show at this point. And I think what Will tells him, that no, you're not just the random kid that she saw. You're the heart of this group. And again, we'll talk about that on Will's side, because it's a beautiful scene for Will. But the only issue with Will saying that, as much as I love that message, is that we never see that from Mike. This is the issue. This is the reason why him saying that at the end of this season feels like them covering up for the fact that he's not been that at all this season. So again, it's kind of like, yeah, we didn't really show you this, but we'll at least just try to tell you at the end so that you get the message. It's like, again, it's like fixing the really bad holes from earlier. I mean, Mike is an extremely unremarkable character who's also kind of a dick, like a lot of the time. And for this arc to culminate in him being the heart of the group, he was the heart of the group in season 1. I loved Mike's character in season 1. Honestly, even since then, it's not just this season. In season 2, there was some good stuff with him when he was fighting for Will. But it just, I think for Mike to respond, like, when Elle hits the girl with the roller skate, and again, they should have made this, if they wanted Mike to have this kind of response, they had to make this, what she did, worse, but for Mike to come up to her after he saw what they did to her, and I get it, maybe it's the 80s, maybe it's a different time, but this is for modern audiences, and nobody in the fucking audience is going to think that Elle's the bad guy here. Nobody. And so for Mike to come up and be like, what did you do? Like, bitch, what the fuck it looked like he did? She did. She hit her with the fucking bloody ass roller skate. It's blood on the skate. It's in her fucking hands, you baby back bitch. Like, come on, bro. Like, this is like, and then for him to, And then in the dinner scene right afterwards, where I think Argyle or Jonathan says, "Oh, this girl got hit with a roller skate, but she was fine," and then for Mike to say she didn't look fine. Like, dude, why are you just watched this girl who you love and who's been through so much just get fucking abused, like seriously abused. Like the whole roller skating rink was like attacking her. The fucking DJ was in on it, bro, and you're gonna sit here and attack her for hitting the girl? Like it was so stupid. And obviously, because later on it is revealed that Mike actually is not scared of 11, so there's no reason for him to say that, because he's not afraid of her, so there's no reason for him to say that at all, except for to set up this twist with Vecna, where 11 starts to feel like she's the monster, and then actually it's Vecna's the monster. You see how all of these things are being set up to do this twist, and I think the twist would have been fine if you don't do that. I didn't say this. I should say this now. I'll get back to the Mike stuff. This season for 11, it should have just been a training montage. It should have just been a training montage, right? Like montage. It should have been a training arc without the past stuff. You know, bring Dr. Brenner back in and have them make this unlikely alliance where she knows she's got to fight Vecna. Don't have her lose her powers. Just have her training and have the interesting part of the arc. You know, we'll have some history there so that we can still get the Vecna twist. But like, have the interesting part of the arc, like exploring the nuances of her powers and how she can, you know, like control things more. Now that she's like. She's grown up, she's more adult, you know. A way to push her forward is to have her come back with the new context of the years that she spent away from Brenner, and come back as a willing participant in these lessons, and have her learning these same things, but not from the perspective of someone who needs to relearn what she's already learned, but from the perspective of someone who, it's like it's like when you have to take, I don't know, math in like 6th grade versus like when you're like, hey, actually I want to be a math major, and you like care about it and you like want to try at it. You know what I mean? Like there's a really interesting way to push her arc forward instead of taking her backwards and having her lose her powers. I hate stories where people lose their powers, but anyway, so I don't know. I think that's what this could have been, but you know, and then Mike is kind of a dick to Will in this season. Like, Mike has a history in this show of like spazzing out on people, and in the past I've just accepted it as kind of like, yeah, well, he's a kid, I get it, you know. He like kind of goes crazy on 11, like, what the fuck did you do? Like going crazy on her in season 1, and then in season 3, I remember when he like goes off on Hopper in like a really not cool way. Like, dude, this guy's an adult, bro. You need to chill out. Like. He really attacks Hopper, and he's just like a bratty ass kid. And I get it. He's a teenager. He's that age. It's not that it's not realistic, but it's that, again, you're selling him as your main. He was your main character. He was the heart of your show. He's supposed to be the heart of your show, and I don't see it. I never see it. I never ever see it. Even when Mike, it's so interesting that this ended up being my main issue with Mike, because even when he gets off the plane. The very first second that he gets off the plane, I had this moment in my mind where I was like, 11 is like, and it might be an acting thing. I think it might be an acting thing, actually, because Millie Bobby Brown is acting circles around him. And she's so happy to see him, and she's been going through this stuff at school, and you can just feel all of that emotion and how much she needs him right there. And he's so, like, flippant. You know, it's like, I knew this kid as like a 13-year-old guy. You know what I mean? Like he's wearing the bucket hat, and he's gonna just like, and like, no hate to that kid in real life, but like, you're not the main character you're not the heart of of a science fiction TV show, right? Like, this kid needs to be a little bit different than this kind of like flippant, like, you know, like knockoff stoner kid, right? When 11 and Mike were kids, every line that they had with each other, every interaction was filled with this sense of wonder, this tension between them, it was like this unspoken tenderness that was always just lying right underneath the surface. It was like really beautiful and like a really innocent yet still very romantic, like a childlike romance kind of way. It was beautiful. I really, really loved their interactions in season 1. And so to see that same kid kind of come off the plane and be like, hey man, what's up, bro? Like, it's good to see you, dude. You know, and to speak to Will so like, you know, just like, oh hey dude, cool, man. It's like, I don't think it's unrealistic at all. I think that's actually exactly who Mike would grow up to be. But especially if the climax of this story for Mike is supposed to be, you're not just the guy she happened to meet, you're the heart of this group, then he needs to be the heart of the group, and he's not. So again, I like that that's where they ended up going with it, but I think the problem is that they never show us that. And I don't think they've showed us that really in the last few seasons, really that much. So I don't know. I'm pretty unhappy with Mike this season. I think he's very underwhelming. And in general, Mike and not 11 and Will and Jonathan, they had nothing to do. But we'll talk more about Will and Jonathan a little bit later. Just to finish off, because this was still in service of Elle's arc. No, wait, I forgot. Also, Mike's speech to 11 at the end is horrible. I'm sorry, it's horrible. Like him saying that he never, the whole thing with him never admitting that he loves her is just weird. It's just super weird. And his justification for it being that he's afraid it would hurt more if she left because he knows that he might just be the normal guy. I think it's like boring and like, I don't know. This is something that my friend also pointed out that I thought was a good point. It's like, maybe I just don't really love watching like 13-year-olds talk about how much they love each other. I don't know. There's an extent to which like I would be maybe happier with this if this wasn't about I love you, because it just doesn't feel like they're really mature enough to have that understanding. Maybe just like have the same moments, but not about love. But also it's just like, it's not the character we've seen before, so it's just like super out of left field. Like, oh, okay, now you're having trouble admitting you love her, like, and that excuse that, oh, you'd be more afraid that if you left me it would hurt more. It makes no fucking sense. It's completely stupid, completely ridiculous. And once again, we're left with a Mike who is exactly what he is afraid of being, because they don't show it very well. I swear I liked these last two episodes, but I have mixed thoughts about the season as a whole, although I really, really liked it in the end. But anyways, going back to Elle, Elle and Papa, I really liked this actually. The very first scene where Brenner is with, I don't know, 6 or whatever, and he's drawing the picture. And he draws the picture of, I think it's supposed to be a dog, and he said it's a cow. And you see this side of Brenner that you've never seen before. That's sort of tender. I say tender a lot. That's sort of, it's sort of sweet. It's very fatherly actually, where he's kind of laughing and, well, it's supposed to be a dog, and it's something you've never seen before. When I saw that, I was cautiously optimistic. I was like, okay, I'm interested in exploring this other side of Brenner, but let's not reform him. And so I'm glad they didn't reform him. He was really a horrible guy through and through, always, of course. He did horrible, unspeakable things. But what I got from him in this season, what I was missing from Dr. Brenner throughout all of Stranger Things so far, is that I never understood why Elle still called him Papa. I never got that. It always felt wrong to me, especially after the stuff in season 2 where she goes out and she's with the girl from her childhood, and maybe she doesn't fully agree with all the girl's methods and stuff, but she really starts to face how horrible that experience was and how much he was not a father, and everything that we saw from him in season 1 was always, it was very calculating. It was very cold. It felt like he was using her entirely. Like, he was putting her in the room until she killed those 2 guys, and then all of a sudden he loves her, and it felt entirely like he was using her, and he was using her, obviously. But what we see in this season, I think it makes a lot of sense why she calls him Papa, because it instead of just like this scientist who like experimented on me as a kid and just like made me think that he was my papa because I didn't know any better. Instead of that, he feels more like an abusive father. You know what? It feels like if imagine there's like a person who had like an abusive father. Maybe you don't have to imagine that. I'm sorry, I don't want to. But you know what I mean. Like there's a person who has an abusive father, right? And they think about it like how one might talk about an abusive father. Like, they don't like them, they don't want to see them, they're not on speaking terms, they're not happy with them. But like at the end of the day, like, they still call them dad. You might not, but I'm saying you would see why they might, right? Like, I'm not saying every person who's been abused still calls their father dad. You know what I mean, though? Like you might still call them father. If they died, you might go to their funeral, that kind of thing. Like, there's still a level of like that's my father, but it's not said with love. It's just said with an understanding that is my father, and that's who he felt like. Now, once you see, how much he cares for her in the sadistic sick way, right? But he does care for her. He's not this cold, calculating, using her just for his experiments to get into the Upside Down. You know, when he's carrying her and he's getting shot and stuff, and throughout the whole season, you can see how much he. I mean, it's ownership more than it's love, but it's like a obsession. It's a sick love, right? There is a love there in like a really gross, weird way. So it's really interesting how they kind of retroactively make me be like, yeah, I can see how he's Papa to her. I can see that now. Instead of just like scientist who abused me for a long time. He's Papa scientist who abused me for a long time. If that makes sense. I don't know. I hope I'm like navigating that correctly. I don't personally have not dealt with these issues, so I hope that makes sense. One thing I'll say that I thought was too far was Elle holding his hand in the middle of the season. And like when she gets her powers back for the first time, and he's like, "Look, I told you." You know, I can see how in that moment she's like, "All right, unlikely partnership. Let's work together because I want to get my powers back because I want to save my friends." I'm not buying. I think this is too far in the Papa realm. I can see her calling him Papa. I can see her working with him. I can't see her trusting him to the extent that she holds his hand and walks back in with him like that, and even trusts him by the. I mean, she feels kind of deeply betrayed when he goes against her, and I don't know. Maybe that just speaks to, you know, sort of like the Stockholm syndrome or like how abuse works, stuff like that. But like, I don't know. I didn't feel like that was truthful, especially with how much she hated him just right before that in the season. So I don't know. Most of the stuff with Brenner was, I thought, really good by the end, but I didn't like that. And I also liked how Brenner was right that she wasn't ready, which it felt like he was right. It felt like he was right, but he was wrong. Well, he was clearly doing that because he wanted to maintain ownership over her. I think it seems pretty clear that he wants to control her, and letting her leave goes against that. But that doesn't mean he's wrong that she's not ready. But also, the reason why it's clear he just wants to control her is because it makes no fucking sense. It's like what Dr. Owens was saying. It makes no sense for her to stay there. I mean, like, Vecna could open the portal. Like, we found out in that same moment he's saying you're not ready. Vecna has to kill one more person to open up the portal and make all of what you're doing moot. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, she has to go. And so what he's saying makes no sense. But I do like that he ended up being right. And it felt like that was going to be the case. So I like that ended up being the case. And she wasn't quite ready to face him alone. And she's going to have to, I mean, you know, do another training arc, I guess. Hopefully this time a more forward-facing training arc. And also while we're on this, Dr. Owens, I always liked this guy. I like that I liked that they had the scientist, the evil government scientist that actually turned out to be an okay guy. I thought that was an interesting nuance on the sort of trope, especially with Dr. Brenner in season 1. So I liked him back in season 2 when it was kind of shocking to me that it was like, oh wait, like he's actually is on their side. That's interesting. So let's talk about Will Byers. Stranger Things, you are on notice. Okay? You have one more season to do right by Will Byers. First of all, let's just get out of the way real quick. I thought that the arc with Mike and how that ended up, which I was very, very skeptical of in the first 7 episodes. I was like, where the fuck is this going? Was incredible. I thought it ended up so well. It was awesome. But it's not enough. It's not enough. Will Byers was the central focal point of this show for 2 seasons. And the poor baby, he went through so much. I mean, he spent days being hunted by the Demogorgon, a small child, right? Like, he got possessed and felt being burned alive. I mean, like, he went through so much. And the whole show revolved around saving Will Byers for 2 seasons. And for him to enter season 3 and now into season 4 and to be so easily cast aside in this show is crazy to me. It's crazy to me how, like, side he is. He's like nothing. He's like nothing in the spectrum of things. And so I will accept. Here's the thing. Will needs his moment. Will needs his triumphant moment where all of the shit that you put him through finally pays off, you know, and he gets his moment. Because he has not gotten anything for that yet. He's not gotten any retribution. He's not gotten any absolution. He's not gotten... I mean, this show needs to end. I know that Eleven's got beef with Vecna. But Will's got beef with Vecna. I think that Will's beef with Vecna is actually more important to the plot of Stranger Things than Eleven's. I'm sorry, it is. 11 just got here, bro. Get in fucking line, dog. Will's dealt with this shit for 2 seasons, my man. Okay? Wait, no. I think the Vecna part was only season 2. No, I don't remember exactly how they just... I guess in season 1, 11 opens it and the Demogorgon just comes out. But the Demogorgon's part of the hive mind, which is controlled by the Mind Flayer, which is Vecna. So, I don't know. Either way, Will went through too much shit. So, Will needs his moment. He needs his revenge. He needs his powerful, triumphant moment. And if he doesn't fucking get it next season, it seems like he will. I trust that he will. But I just really, it's such a bizarre choice to me to make him such a sidelined character. And I get that part of it is that that's the point. It seemed like last season they were having this arc of like, you know, they're kind of forgetting about Will. They're growing up without Will. And I thought that was okay. That was an interesting choice, although maybe not the choice I would have loved to make, but it was an interesting choice. The problem is that it never felt like it paid off enough to justify it. Again, he's been through so much. I mean, it's like if you, and I don't know, it's like it feels like if you spend every single day of your life trying to win the lottery, and then you win the lottery, and you kind of are just like, you don't even go pick up the money or something. You know what I mean? It's like, Will's back. Like, everything that you did was to save your best friend Will, and then you treat him like this. And again, that can be an interesting plot point, but it didn't feel like they did enough with it. It didn't feel like, for example, them being in the D&D club this season is offensive to me, to Will, for Will. And I get people are always saying, well, it makes sense that they joined the D&D club because once they got to high school, this was the only place where they belonged. Yeah, okay, I get it. It makes sense, okay? But from a writing perspective, I think that it could have been done a lot better in the sense that last season there was a whole arc about Will trying to play D&D with them, and then they didn't want to play because they were too old for it and they'd grown out of it, da-da-da-da. All you need to do at the end of that season is have some good moments where Will helps them rediscover their innocence, rediscover their childhood, rediscover D&D, rediscover why they if you're going to have them forget about him, have them remember why they fought for him in the first place. Have Will and the boys come back together. It felt weird that they separated Dustin, too, from the group last season. I mean, and again, I think that they're doing all of this so that they can set up them really being close in the final season. It's just like this awesome finale. But I just think in the process there, you gotta do it better. If you want, because you want it to come back and be much more awesome when it gets back, you just gotta do it better on the way then. Because, like, you know, this is a group that was so, you know, you never split the party. They did everything for Will. You know, they always contact each other. They always da-da-da-da. And then for Dustin to just come back and be like, yeah, I'm kind of being forgotten because of the girls. Like, I get it. Again, it's realistic. But once again, you're trying to sell me on Mike as this character that's full of heart. And so it just, I wish that they had made stronger choices with Mike. I think Mike is really the missing piece here. That Mike should have been the one that really was plugged into these things and tuned into the fact that their group was kind of falling apart. Because he's the heart of the group, as Will said in this season. So anyway, I mean, if Will had rekindled their love for D&D and then in this season they joined a D&D club, I think that would have been really good. It would have been a very small change. But I think what makes Will interesting as a character, or one thing that could make Will interesting, because again, he's got nothing. He's got nothing except for the sexuality thing, which I think is really strong. Like I said, I was very skeptical of it. I was like, this does not feel like it's going anywhere, but I felt like it ended super strong, so I'm happy with it. But I think he needs something more than that. And I think that what is interesting about Will, and a choice that they could have made, and they could have been making over these last 2 seasons, is that Will, I think, really is sort of the epitome. If Mike is the heart of the group, Will represents their innocence, their childhood. The only thing we find out about Will before he gets kidnapped is that he tells Mike, the DM, that he got caught by the Demogorgon because he didn't roll a high enough number. Even when the other kids told him not to tell. Even when Lucas said, hey, Mike didn't see it, don't tell. Will. Who's Luke? Will's like, hey, it got me. I rolled a 7. It got me. You know what I mean? Like, he's like a paragon of good and innocence. If Mike is the heart, Will is the soul, right? Will is, and you know, again, you can make whatever choice you want to make. I'm not saying this has to be Will. It would be interesting to subvert that maybe, especially with him getting corrupted by demonic stuff. You know, there's interesting stuff all there. But I'm just saying, I think that's where I maybe would have gone with Will's character, and having him. I mean, it's not to say that he's not that, you know, with him wanting to play D&D last season and stuff like that, and him always kind of just being a nice kid. But I don't know. I feel like they could have given him a lot more moments where that really shines through. Again, I think every character needs to have their niche. They need to have their qualities that we feel strongly about. This person represents this. This person does this, and you know, for example, Joyce Byers is my favorite character in Stranger Things. This season, I think they did her dirty. We'll talk about it. Joyce Byers is fucking driven. Like, she is so driven. She will do anything for the people she loves. You know what I mean? Like, that's who she is. And that's her niche. That's what she represents, okay? Will doesn't even have that, you know, anymore. Or he never did, because he was always a plot point instead of a real character. But now that he's a character, he doesn't have any of that. So I think that could have been a really interesting thing to explore with him, as just reminding the group of their souls. You know, reminding the group, their figurative souls, right? Of just being a nice... I mean, just because I think of how much he went through and how much... I think it makes what he went through that much more powerful if he's just this really good kid, which he is. But again, they don't do it enough. They don't give him enough with that. So I don't know. That's what I feel like would have been really cool. And let's see, what do we? So okay, so yeah, I want to talk. So what they did do with this? Let me just say, Noah Schnapp's, Millie Bobby Brown, two best child actors I've ever seen in my life. They are so fucking good, unbelievably good. Unbelievably good. I would have put Lucas in there season 1, but he fell off way big acting time. We'll talk about him later. The scene in the car with Will and Mike is so touching, and I would say a huge part of that is Noah Schnapp's acting. I've talked in previous videos about the difference between an actor who just comes and maybe plays the role, you know, okay, reads the lines, is not horrible, and someone who really elevates the material and turns it into something new and special. And that's what, again, I can't leave Millie out of the conversation. Millie and Noah, I mean, Noah in this scene is unbelievably good. Him turning over to the window and just like holding back his tears was so I mean, it's like makes me want to cry just thinking about it. I mean, it's so powerful. What a gift of a scene partner he is. You know, in that scene when he's with Jonathan in the pizza place at the end. You know, I think on the page it's an okay scene. The stuff that they say is fine, but Noah Schnapp's just turns that scene into something so much more. There's this tiny little moment where Jonathan starts to breach the topic with Will, and Will has this you can see this need on his face to talk to somebody about what he's going through. Like you can see this need for a big brother to just somebody to be there for him. You know what I mean? Like you can see that so clearly on his face in a way that just makes this it is incredible. I can't speak highly enough about him, and he's been this way ever since season 1. He is so good. In season 1, when he's getting chased by the Demogorgon in the very first episode, I mean, just incredible. The way he's shaking when he's putting the bullets in the gun, and just like he's so scared. It's so truthful. And then in season 2, oh my God, when he's getting burned and he's making it's haunting. I mean, he makes that. I'm like, dude, this kid is a fucking professional. And how young was he doing that? I mean, again, Noah Schnapp's. I am unbelievably impressed with his acting ability. And it just, I don't know. They had some videos recently about some Marvel characters that the acting is not good, and I'm just like, wow, you guys gotta do better, because this is the acting for if you're gonna lead major projects, which Will isn't even doing. He's just a side character at this point. But if you're gonna lead major projects, you need actors like Noah Schnapp's in there, because he's incredible. So, anyways, that scene with Mike. I mean, what a beautiful. I think that Stranger Things, I keep talking about things other than the scene, but I want to frame this really quickly. I think that Stranger Things, I just made it, my last video actually was about how I felt like the diversity and representation in the MCU is so shallow, to the point where it's like, I mean, the stories are just, they're so surface level. I mean, you know, like Miss Marvel is just a show about a girl. I mean, obviously they represent the culture in different ways, but basically, you know, every time anything happens, she's got to say, I'm a Pakistani superhero. Look at me. You know what I mean? Like, and Stranger Things, all 4 seasons has been such a breath of fresh air to see a mainstream, big budget project that really represents these issues with nuance and in an interesting, really cool way. I'm interested to see, because in my hypothesis in that video is that part of the reason why there's so much backlash against the social justice stuff in Marvel is because it's so poorly done, and the stories are so shallow, and they're just like not good a lot of the times on their face. And so I would be interested to see how much backlash there is with the same themes in Stranger Things. I would imagine there's still a decent amount, I'm sure, but I feel like there's got to be less because they do that. They do them so much. I mean, like Robin last season was such an awesome character all the way through. She was just, I already talked about it. She was super capable and all these things, and then at the very end, this thing comes out about her that you're like, whoa, oh my god, that's so cool. And she doesn't even say the word, right? She doesn't have to wink to the camera. She doesn't have to say, look at us, we're getting brownie points. It feels so truthful, and she is a fully developed character in her own right without any of the LGBT stuff, and the LGBT stuff is just on top of that, and it just is another dimension of this awesome character. Last season, not this season, or even like having strong female leads. I said Joyce Byer is my favorite character in this show, not in this season, but in this show overall. She's fucking awesome. Nancy, 11. I mean, they have strong ass awesome female Erica. They have strong ass awesome ass female characters, and no point are they like, look at us, you know, we gotta. It's not shallow. They're just telling good stories with these characters, and so it's really awesome. The one thing I'll say about this stuff with Will is that I don't feel like he has enough to do outside of this arc. That said, I think that the way they approach this has such nuance and it feels so truthful that it's okay to me. I mean, I'm not LGBT, so, you know, tell me if you don't think it is, but I felt like it was really well done. Because I kept thinking, like, how are they gonna, if you know, Mike is in love with 11, Will's his friend, how are they even gonna approach this? This is just weird. Like, why do they have to have him have a crush on Mike? But the way that he speaks to how he truly feels and frames it as something that 11 feels, and the painting isn't like a weird like romantic painting between two like young boys, but I thought like would have just been off, because Mike would never have responded to that in a good way, like, and instead it's just it shows it's like a picture of them, and it shows Mike being at the front, and it shows what Will admires about Mike and his bravery, and the way he says, oh yeah, 11 asked me to make it, I just made it for her, you know, when obviously he made it because that's how he feels, and the way that he finally tells Mike how he feels, but he frames it as how 11 feels, and then he sits and he cries afterwards, and the way that Jonathan even just notices in the mirror, and so it speaks to their connection as brothers too. I just thought it was so beautiful. Like, I mean, like, I don't know, there's something about Will as a character that really, really gets me, like, throughout all of this show. Like, he just gets to me. I mean, what a sweet kid. It was so, and his acting again is so good. It was just, it was really, really heartbreaking, and it felt super truthful, especially like in the 80s when, you know, lesbian, gay issues were never, were not in the mainstream, I guess you could say. Obviously, there were communities that were these things were talked about. There were a lot of communities where they were never talked about, which obviously Hawkins is one of those communities, as we've seen through Robin. So it felt very, very truthful for him to have to hide and not say how he feels, and then for him to just cry afterwards. I mean, wow. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. So I don't know. Again, I'm not LGBT, so hey, if you think that it was, if you have a problem with it, I'm interested in hearing other people's opinions on that. So tell me what you think. Okay, so let's talk about Hopper. Hopper, my man, Hopper. If we're talking about ways in which characters were underutilized and not utilized to the best of their abilities, let's talk about what Hopper usually is. Hopper is the rock for our main cast. He's capable. He's driven. When he shows up, you're safe. Okay? He will fuck a nigga up real quick. In the fucking dome. In the head. In the face. What's up, bro? I'll fucking pistol whip the mayor. Let's go. Like, right now, I'll do that shit. You know what I mean? Like, he doesn't care. This is what I love about him and Joyce both, and why they're such a great couple together. You know, they will do what the fuck they need to do to protect people that they love. They will go right back into that Russian prison, which I thought was a fun choice. It was so Stranger Things, right? I'll talk a little more about that later. But, and so what we like about, and we just love when Hopper beats the fuck out of somebody who deserves it. Because he needs to save somebody, and you know, at that point, beating the fuck out of them is the only way you can do it. You know, it's just what you love about Hopper. And so, and I also think what we love about Stranger Things is the horror, mystery, fantastical, strange, creepy nature that's underlying every single thing in this show. And so to put Hopper in a Russian labor camp, it feels so off on so many levels. Again, you can take Hopper out. It's an interesting question to ask. who is Hopper if he's not protecting the people that he loves? If he's taken away from all those people, how does he react? But again, you have to make what you put in its place interesting for us as the audience, and I just don't think it was. I really don't. I felt like what this needed more than anything else. Okay, so basically, to give some background, in season 3, I felt like the Russia stuff. I respected Stranger Things, by the way, for starting this show in the 80s with the Americans as the bad guys before having the Soviets as the bad guys. Because if the Soviets were the bad guys in the first season, it would feel like propaganda. Whereas I feel like the Soviet Union and the United States obviously both did a lot of horrible things. And so for them to acknowledge, yeah, the United States government is actually who's fucked up here, and then to bring the Soviet Union in, I was like, yeah, okay, I'm cool with that. Actually, you gain respect points for that because, you're not just doing what every other thing. I mean, obviously you were made in the 2000s, not in the 80s, so that's why. But still, it didn't feel cliche. But that said, I think that there's two different types of government conspiracy or oppressive government stories. There's oppressive government stories that are based in horror, which is like season 1 of this show, the Stanford prison experiment type stuff, like some of the MK Ultra stuff, like creepy experiments, maybe like aliens, Area 51, monster type shit. Like there's that level of oppressive government stuff that I think is really fun, has a lot of potential for Stranger Things. It's like part of what Stranger Things is built on. That's what the first season was built on. It's like government corruption and government oppressiveness, but not like the sort of everyday version of it, but like the horror version of it. And then there's just Russian labor camps, which are just not scary. I mean, they're scary, but not in the way that I want to, not in a Stranger Things scary way. They're scary in just a real life scary way. And I think that it was just a horrible, horrible decision to just put him in a Russian labor camp. I think that one of two things would have been a really cool alternative. One is if just like in the first season, or they even come back to this later on in the season where they're doing all these experiments with Demogorgons and they have the Mind Flayer or parts of the Mind Flayer, etc. And so maybe if that reveal, I think that reveal could have happened way earlier in the season, and then we have that, and then it was more based on what maybe Hopper was involved in those experiments. They were using him, and there was just a horror, fantastical element to all of it, as opposed to him just working on a fucking railroad in the Russian snow. It was just too real, and it didn't feel like Stranger Things to me at all. The other thing that I think, this is something that my friend said, that was really good when we were talking through this and different ideas, because I think we both thought that when Hopper was alive, it was he must have actually been transported into the Upside Down or whatever, which would have been way more interesting. But something that he said is okay, fine, you guys can go with the forced labor camp thing, but have Russia having a forced labor camp in the Upside Down, mining materials or something that would have been so cool, right? And then you can use that to explore and develop the lore of the Upside Down and the history, and you can still have Hopper feel connected to the Stranger Things mythology and the larger mystery. But for them to have 7 fucking episodes of this, I'm sorry, I do not care about Enzo. I do not care about fucking Yuri. I don't care about any of this shit, man. I'm sorry. I know that some people liked it. For me, it was just not Stranger Things. It was just or, I mean, you can define Stranger Things, whatever, No True Scotsman, whatever. I guess basically I'm saying it was not why I like Stranger Things. I like Stranger Things because of the fantastical elements. And so it was just, and I think that him dying in the last season was just stupid. And then for him to be alive was also stupid. If you're going to kill him, kill him. If you're not, then don't. So, I don't know. And so, okay, something like Saw almost, right? Some kind of, I know that Saw wasn't, I feel like they mostly are referencing movies from the era, so maybe Saw, but you know what I mean? Some kind of experiment type, a Saw type deal would have been interesting. Just some horror shit, some scary government oppression, not just real government oppression. So, and then I think that the reveal that actually they can affect the events of the finale, which I thought was really cool. I was wondering how they're going to bring everybody together like they normally do in a way that doesn't feel forced. Okay, they're going to drive all the way back to Hawkins. You're going to fly all the way back to Hawkins. I was not sure how that was going to work. I was really worried about that going into these last 2 episodes. And for them to actually come to the realization that the parties can help from where they are was awesome. I loved that. But the problem is, With Hopper, it just felt like a little bit like it came out of nowhere. And so I think that fixing both of these issues, you just introduce that twist that they're experimenting on Demogorgons and they got the Mind Flayer and everything like way earlier. Give us a reason to care about the Russia shit, because I'm sorry, I just did not. And if you introduce that way earlier, we get Hop involved in that stuff. Hopper involved in that stuff. Like, then when it turns out, hey, we can actually help them by burning the Demogorgons and stuff, like, that becomes a little bit more believable. And I don't know, I like it a lot more. It makes way more sense to me. The monologue about, I guess, again, this is a situation where they're trying to take Hopper and put him at his lowest point before the final season, where he finally gets, at the end of the season, he finally gets back together with everybody and he goes to the final season. But again, I think a lot of what they did in the penultimate season of this show is putting everybody at their lowest low so that they can go into the end on a higher high. And that's fine, but the lowest low has to be, in its own right, just good, and it just wasn't. I think that his monologue about being cursed, I think it just rang a little hollow for me, and I'm trying to think of why exactly. I can't quite put my finger on it. I think part of it is that we just know it's not true. We know that he's going to get out of here, because if not, he would have just died in the last season. We know that he's not cursed. We know that he is... I'm not saying it's not interesting to have him like kind of explore these weird feelings that he has, that he's cursed, but it just feels hollow when the actual answer to that question is just like, oh, no, you're not. You're just like kind of down bad right now, but like you're going to figure it out. You know what I mean? Like, maybe if there was a more complex answer to that question, like how does he really answer that question besides just going back on it and being like, oh, I guess I'm not cursed. I actually figured it all out and we're fine. Because, you know, I guess the answer is sort of like the love and the bonds they developed, it overcame his feelings of being cursed. I don't know. There's something there, but I don't know. I can't fully put my finger on why I was like, okay, I guess, whatever, bro. I'm just over all this shit. That said, Joyce and Hopper reuniting was obviously really nice. Calling him the hero of Hawkins was great. Again, that just gets back to right where we want Hopper, is being a hero, right? That's where Hopper's great. He's being the hero of the group who can get shit done. And be the muscle and the person. Yeah, I don't know. We love Hopper, and I think that they have great chemistry when they're finally being able to be romantic. But the one thing I wanted out of that, I really needed, I think, Hopper, after everything he had been through, to just get really serious for a second. And because when they started to say, like, you know, how much he thought about all their date and everything, and it kind of went into the food thing, and I get it, but I really think I needed Hopper to get really fucking serious and just say, like, hey, bro, I fucking love you, and, like, you were the one thing that got me through all. Like, I needed Hopper to just drop the tough guy act and be extremely vulnerable with Joyce, because he'd been broken down so much, and he'd been through so much, and I think I just wanted... I know that maybe it was just unspoken, but I think it just would have been a good moment to see Hopper different than we've ever seen Hopper, and just to be extremely... Well, he'd been vulnerable, I guess, a few times so far, but extremely vulnerable with Joyce, and just be like, you got me through. Like, I thought about you every night. Like, I'm not saying it right. Like, there's a way to do that doesn't feel corny, maybe. And Rob, obviously, is acted by David Harbour, who's an incredible actor. So, I don't know. I needed that moment, I think. And then when they kind of start talking about the food and everything, and it kind of just turns into a little bit more of a joke, I'm like, I don't know. And then 11 and Hopper's reunion was great. Last thing I'll say about this, I'm always down for appealing to someone's better nature and turning them over to the good side. So I liked what they did with Yuri. It was a little bit too easy, but I liked it. Whatever. It was a small issue. I think I liked overall the beat there. I just think that maybe it needed a little more. Maybe we needed to see how Yuri used to see himself previously as the hero before he has, like, earlier in the season, so that when he has that change of heart, it makes sense. I don't know. Anyways, Joyce has been my favorite character for 3 seasons. As I said before, she is absolutely indomitable. She's not going to that fucking funeral, okay? She's going to talk to those goddamn light bulbs, all right? She's not going to look at that fake-ass dead body. No, fuck you. Fuck what you think. I'm doing what the fuck I need to do to save my motherfucking son. And if I need to go into the fucking upside down myself, if I need to tear down this fucking wall with an axe myself, if I need to go fucking crazy and put up lights all over the fucking house and have people walk into me and talk to me like I'm fucking crazy and do... I'm going to fucking do it because I'm going to save my goddamn son. That's why we love Joyce. And to that, in that vein... that we see that from her in this season. She's still very much that character, in that she's indomitable in her need to go save Hopper. But here's the other piece of Joyce that I think is the most interesting, is where Joyce is most interesting and where she's underutilized in this season, which is that Joyce is a detective. They even joke about it in the last season where he's like, hey, you're going to be my detective, you know? And I get that she's not going to literally become one because he died, and so that part of her was gone. He died, you know? But I think that the show, when they said that, was acknowledging that I think that Joyce is also most interesting when she's driving the plot by discovering a mystery. Again, if we go back to the characters' toolboxes, the things that they have and that they can use to overcome their problems, Joyce's toolbox is being indomitable and being able to figure shit out because of how indomitable she is. Just never relenting and getting to the bottom of crazy mysteries. And you know, again, like the stuff with the lights, I talking to her son through the lights in season 1 was so good. It was so good. It was incredible. And the way that she, just throughout all of season 2, when she always has these looks on her face, you know, like I don't know if it's Winona, like Winona Ryder does it so well, and I so much believe that it's Joyce, but like part of me just thinks maybe Winona Ryder just kind of makes those looks. I don't know, but it's so incredible. But she's always got these intense, like, confused looks that are so funny. But I just think that she's way more interesting when she's solving a mystery, because in this season, I think that up until they start leaving for Alaska, she's doing that, right? She gets the weird doll. She's figuring out, okay, it had to be Hopper because of the Enzo. She calls Murray and gets him to do the, the breaking the thing. And she, you know, like she's doing the detective thing that she does, which I think is so fun. But I think right after that, as soon as they get on the plane, and again, the problem is not that she's doing something outside of what she normally does. I think for this one specifically, the problem is that it doesn't feel like she's solving these problems in a way that she's driving the plot forward by solving problems. It feels like the plot is kind of just happening. Like Joyce has driven the plot forward for 3 seasons now. I mean, at least part of the plot for season 2 and 3. Part of the plot for all the seasons, but she's always driven the plot forward. I think that she put this plot in motion, but then things just kind of happened. You know, you get Yuri and he betrays them, and then she's like, oh, let's just hijack the plane, and then she hijacks the plane, okay, and then the plane crashes and she survives, and then they get into the prison and they trick, you know, like Joyce is not a master of trickery, right? She's a detective, and so for her to not be able to be in her element and figuring out and getting to the bottom of mysteries, there's something really missing there. And I also say this as someone who, again, Joyce is my favorite character. So I really didn't like what they did with her this season. And I know people are going to say, which is that Murray, this was where Murray got to shine, because these were all of Murray's strong suits. Murray knows karate. Murray knows Russian. Murray can act as Yuri and trick people and da-da-da-da. And I loved Murray in seasons 2 and 3. I thought Murray was a fucking incredible character. I think he was hilarious. He was extremely resourceful. I loved how he got Jonathan and Nancy to finally hook up. And then when you see him and Joyce and Hopper together, you already know that Murray charm. You know, he's gonna get them together, and you love that about Murray. But the problem is that Murray is more of a plot point than a character, because Murray doesn't really have an emotional journey. He just gets stuff done. And so I liked him as being a third wheel to Nancy and Jonathan, or to Hopper and Joyce, where they have the emotional connection that's going throughout the show, and he's just there to help them get stuff done and be funny as fuck while he's doing it, right? But when you lose Hopper, and when you lose the stuff that makes Joyce interesting as a character, and you have Murray sort of driving the plot forward with Joyce, I don't think he works as a main character. I don't. I think he works so much better as a side character. Have him be the guy who knows karate and knows Russian and helps people with their relationships and can hack or figure out how to open up a Russian device that might be a bomb. Like, I love that. I love Murray when he's that guy. I think that and everyone loves Murray. People are going to hate me for this opinion, but I just don't think that Murray was ready to upgrade. And if he was, he needed to have a much stronger emotional journey in this season. I needed more from him if he was going to be all that Joyce had to play off of, because it felt like the Murray show. It felt like Murray was just doing plot stuff to move them forward. Yeah, he can help hijack the plane. He can beat the guys in karate. He can do the Russian accent. It's just Murray doing shit, and Joyce is just kind of hanging out instead of doing what she's done for 3 seasons, which is drive the plot forward with her ingenuity, with her, with her MacGyver. MacGyver might be specific, with her Sherlock. We'll say Sherlock Holmes type mentality of getting to the bottom of this shit because, well, it's still not really Sherlock, but you know what I mean. She gets to the bottom of shit because she has this indomitable will to do it. And here we have the will, but we don't quite have the skill. Oh, I like that. We have the will, but we don't have the skill, you know? So again, if I go back to what I said at the beginning of the video, we're talking about capable characters using the tools in their toolbox to get things done in a way that feels truthful to what we know about that character. And I think I just think we really lost that for Joyce. And again, I'm biased because I love Joyce. So let's talk about Eddie. I really liked Eddie. There were times when I was like, I'm not fully sure. I liked him from the beginning. One thing that I thought they really did a great job characterizing him in the beginning in 2 specific scenes. The first one is when he's doing his monologue in the lunchroom and he's having fun with there's something about his acting in that scene that's really electric and exciting. But most importantly, the directors were very smart to have Mike and Dustin laughing and not feeling attacked by him, because with the way he was talking and the way that he was targeting them and saying, you're gonna find somebody for this game, you know what I mean? Like, if they weren't clearly having a good time, he would have felt like a bully. He would have felt like he would not have felt like someone that you want to root for and that you like. But the fact that he's like strong-arming them, but he's doing it in a way that everybody's clearly having fun. I thought that was really great directorial choice to just make sure that we know that they're kind of in on this, and this is what Eddie does, and he's harmless. He's not bullying them. He's harmless. He's intense. He'll say mean things to you, but he's harmless. And actually, they really respected him and liked him because he brought them in and showed them something. And that's even what his monologue was about. It was really not what you would think in that scene when they say, "Oh God, Eddie's gonna be so mad." You know what I mean? And you think he's gonna be mad, but he's mad, but really his point is not like, fuck you guys, I'm mad at you, or fuck you guys, Lucas better join us, or you're going to be in trouble. His point is, guys, I brought you into this group. Go find someone else who needs love in the school. There's going to be people that need love just like you guys needed love. Go find, he's a good guy. And then again, in the same episode, the Billy and Chrissy scene together was so good, and his acting in that scene once again was so good, and it was I was really shocked at the ways that they were able to characterize. I feel like it's kind of a cliche, right? Especially in movies that were made in the era this is set, where kind of 2 characters, one that's sort of the popular kid and one that's sort of the punk kid, like kind of actually end up getting along. But the way that they did it felt so new and fresh, and it really it endeared you to both of their characters. You really liked both of them, and I thought that was really, really, really well done. It was awesome. And the fact that they killed off Chrissy right after that was so good. I mean, there are a lot of things in this season that I'm really impressed with, because they put in the time to make sure it was really well done, even if it was only to set up another moment. For Chrissy, for example, she was only there to die at the end of episode 1. A lesser show would have not had her be all that interesting, but she was really interesting, and Eddie was part of that. And I'll also say, I meant to say this at the beginning of the video, actually. I will bet every single person watching this video $5 that the reason Eddie's character was in this show was for that Metallica solo in the Upside Down at the end. They started with, we want to have an electric guitar solo in the Upside Down, and they ended with the character of Eddie. I swear it. They might not ever admit it. I will die on this hill. I'll bet you all $5, but you can't agree to the bet because we can't shake hands. So, haha. If I'm wrong, you don't get your money. But anyway, I'm just so sure about it. I'm so sure, because it's just such an awesome scene, and it's so awesome that it's the kind of thing you build your show around, right? You build your show leading up to this. But again, a lesser show would have made it super clear that they knew where they wanted to end up, and they didn't quite know how to get there. And I think that they do that with a lot of the characters in this show, as I've said a few times already. Like, some of these characters end up in really cool places, but the journey is now. But for the fact that they justified that. I mean, they earned that moment. It was so, when he said, it's like you were made to be played in an alternate dimension, and then it pans over the electric guitar, I was like, oh my god, no fucking way, we're doing this shit. And he's playing, I mean, that is why you watch Stranger Things. I mean, what an awesome, incredible scene. Awesome scene. And just, so deserved. They built up Eddie to be such a really likable character throughout the whole show. Again, there were a few moments where maybe it was acting wise, just a few small moments where I was like, I don't know, I don't quite know. But most of the time, I mean, he knocked out of the park. That scene was incredible. I think the scenes where Eddie shines the most are the scenes where he and Dustin are being nerds together and like applying that nerdiness to real life, which is the core of Stranger Things, right? Is like being able to use your nerdy knowledge, or you're like, really, for the kids it's nerdy knowledge, but for basically it's for regular everyday people to be able to use what they know from everyday life to take on supernatural threats. And so for nerds, it's their nerd knowledge and how that helps them take on supernatural threats. And so he's the best when he's doing that, It sounds like you're asking me to walk into Mordor, but the Shire is burning, and the way he says that is just so fun. And the way that he, and then his moment, where Dustin and him are building weapons, and the way they feel like real D&D characters, and his original inability to make the sacrifice play, and to see Steve do that, and the way that Steve, we'll talk about Steve, the way that Steve helps him become a better person, the way that the jock, the cool jock, helps this alternative like guy who hated him like a few weeks ago, like become a better person to the point where he gives his life for Hawkins. I mean, it's really, really beautiful, and the way that he gives his life, and he goes out so epically with the D&D, the shield and the sword. I mean, the bats flew around him for a little too long, but it's fine, rule of cool, as long, I mean, it didn't end up being a plot point, so it was fine, right? Like, it was just cool for the moment. It was just, I thought Eddie's character was okay in the first 7 episodes. I liked him, but I loved him by the end. I loved him. I was really, really happy with how they ended up with him, and I understood why he needed to be in this show. I think that was it. I liked him okay in the first 7 episodes, but I felt like the other characters a lot of them had gotten shortchanged so much that I was like, I don't know why we need him here, but I get why we need him, and he was so good. He was so good. Making the sacrifice play again was awesome. It was a little cliche, a little predictable, but it was still awesome. Dustin, I am going to be unpopular for saying this. Obviously I love Dustin. Like, the thing is that it's kind of like dogs, right? It's like everybody fucking loves dogs. Like, we get it. Like, dogs are awesome. All right, we get it. At this point, up until the end, I think at the end this became different. But for most of the season, Dustin, and I think Steve too, we'll talk about Steve right after this. Steve to some extent. As much as I love Steve, who had some really great moments here. But Dustin is... Again, I think the end of this season did him right on this point. But for most of the season, I think it's just more Dustin. And you love him, but to me, it's like it's a little stagnant. Just a little stagnant, right? Like, I'm not saying... obviously, you love every second he's on screen. You love him helping figure out the mystery and being such a nerd and being such a... You love him and Steve's relationship. But part of it is that it just feels like, okay, we've been doing this for 3 seasons now with this whole Dustin and Steve thing, and like... I don't know, like, I kind of want it to evolve a little bit. And it evolves. It's not fair to say it doesn't evolve, because the way they're almost like an old married couple nowadays. I love when Dustin's like, hey, man, not cool. And he's like, sorry, man. And the way that they have really some interesting banter. Sometimes the banter is a little... I guess part of it is that sometimes the banter feels a little bit like, okay, come on, guys. We've been doing this for a little long. And then sometimes it feels new, and it feels like it's relaying that they're closer than they were in previous seasons because time has passed. And I think that's when they're the best, when it shows how their relationship develops and evolves, and they become even closer. And so, I like when Eddie says that Dustin idolizes you to Steve. Like, that stuff's cool. I think that there's just a lot of times when it just feels a little bit stagnant. That's all. But at the end, I really like where it seems like they're going with his character. The end with Eddie and then with Eddie's dad was awesome for Dustin. It was really, really sweet. It was very heartbreaking moments. I love that Eddie made him promise to take over the herd. I mean, next season we're gonna have Dustin taking Eddie's place, or maybe next season some shit might be hitting the fans, maybe not. But at the end of this show, Dustin ain't gonna die. he's fulfilling that promise to Eddie, and that develops his character in a really interesting way, in that he's now made it his mission to look out for kids in the same way that he's had great role models that have looked out for him. I thought that's really powerful. And then Eddie's uncle. I think that the other this scene helped me realize that maybe the other thing I have with Dustin is that I people are gonna kill me for saying this. I feel like the actor, I can't think of his name, is kind of phoning it in sometimes, in the sense that he's just got so much natural charisma, and he's just so naturally funny, and he's got a great look, and he's just so Dustin that he doesn't really need to ever try that much. And I feel like sometimes that comes across. That's not fair. I don't know his process. Maybe he does. I'm just saying that that's maybe what comes across, and maybe that's not true, but that's just what I'm getting from him. I'm not saying that is what he does. I'm just saying that's what I'm getting from him, right? And it feels like in this scene with Eddie's uncle, it was the best acting I've ever seen from Dustin. I mean, he was really, really, really on point, really poignant. The tears felt so real, and it was such a great moment for him to have to talk to Eddie's dad like that, and it was awesome. It was I don't have much to say about it. It was just really beautiful. It was a beautiful scene with him and Eddie, and him and Eddie's uncle. Just really beautiful. So I love where they ended up with Dustin. Even though, sometimes it was a little cliche for some of the show. So Nancy, Steve, and Jonathan. How do I want to handle this? First of all, Jonathan is a non-character. I am extremely upset with how they've treated Jonathan all season. It's crazy to me. Again, you're going to introduce new characters. Do something with your old characters. I mean, this guy says and does pretty much nothing for 9 episodes, and then at the very end is like, "Hey, Will, let me be your brother. I'm sorry I haven't been talking to you." And that was a really sweet scene. And again, it's one of those things where the last 2 episodes kind of does enough to make me happy with the ending. As long as the ending's good, right? It does a lot if you have a good ending. But it didn't. He didn't do anything, and everybody says this, and so it's very blatantly obvious that it's just like, what the fuck is going on with Jonathan? And the Steve and Nancy romance thing, let me say, this is probably the strongest example I have of it feeling like the first 7 episodes were someone trying to ruin a lot of things, and the last 2 were someone trying to just kind of put the stitches back on, because I could not think of how are they possibly going to, for them to with Nancy and Jonathan. Let me be clear. I was originally a Nancy and Stever. Going into season 2, I was kind of upset to see that Nancy went with Jonathan. And when I rewatched this time, and I knew that they were going to get together, I saw oh no, this is clearly where they were heading. This is very clearly where they were heading. There was too much between them for them not to do it in season 2. But I was originally a much bigger fan of Nancy and Steve, because it felt like Jonathan and Nancy were just really good friends. That would be interesting and a nice variation on the trope. That said, I mean, we've watched Nancy and Jonathan for 3 seasons now. They have been on a romance path for 3 seasons. And we're going to talk about Steve's development in a second here, but even just for that, for them to go back on that this season, I was like, what the fuck is going on? I was really upset about it. And not only that, but to have them go back on it without Steve and Jonathan, I mean, Nancy and Jonathan even talking once throughout the whole show. If you know one thing about me, it's that I hate a plot point that is based on a misunderstanding. And Stranger Things has that a decent amount of times, but they do enough other great shit that I'm able to let it slide. But for this be this whole they just haven't talked, and Nancy's all of a sudden getting googly eyes with Steve, I was pissed. I was like, how could they possibly justify this? But in the end, it felt like what they were doing. I'm so glad they ended it how they ended it, which is she's still with Jonathan. They weren't breaking them up. They weren't, it wasn't like that. It was just that they were setting up a bit of a soft love triangle going into season 5, which I think is I still don't prefer this, and I'll talk about why in a second, because I think the reason I don't prefer it is because of the stuff with Steve. Actually, for all of them, because it feels like they're all going backwards as characters, really. I don't prefer it, but I think is absolutely the best possible solution to what they've been setting up this season. Because any sort of relationship between Nancy and Steve this season, without Nancy and Jonathan ever talking, is really just offensive to me. Super offensive to 3 seasons of character development. Don't put them together all this time if you're just going to have her go right back to Steve. So for it to be more that she still loves Jonathan, she's still with Jonathan, she's not leaving Jonathan, but she also, because of this journey with Steve, just kind of also sees this other path in a way that might come back in the future, but that isn't like she's not leaving. I don't know. It felt more realistic. It felt like the best way, like I said, that they could possibly do this. So I'm tentatively okay with it. I'm more okay with it than I would have been any other way, really. It's the one way they ended that plot point that didn't make me want to punch the screen, because I wanted to punch the screen the whole time I was watching it. I was like, Jesus, what the fuck am I watching? What is this nonsense? And so let's talk about that with Steve, okay? It's something that Beyond the Trailer has said that really kind of puts exactly into words how I feel about Steve, which is that Steve has sacrificed so much to be a good person. He sacrificed everything. He lost his popularity, right? Like, he was the cool kid. You know, he gave all that stuff up, right? He gave it up to be a good person, right? He babysits kids. He's not treated seriously by the group, really. Like, he gives and gives and gives. He goes. It starts with him going back into that house, and it just goes on and on from there. And this season brings it up a lot. You know, he doesn't know what he's doing with his life. He doesn't know where he's going to college. He doesn't have someone that he loves. He's just in this stagnant place, and I don't feel like the other characters respect enough the sacrifices that he made to do this. I mean, like, you know, like I said, he was the king of the school, and he willingly, you never see this, right? The king of the school willingly giving up all of that. I mean, obviously graduated now, so it matters less, but still, willingly giving up all of that king of the school crap to be like, actually, like, I just want to be like a good guy and not be, I will be a mentor to this young kid because he looks up to me and because he needs me, right? Like, it's just he gives and gives and gives, and he needs someone to be looking out for him. And I think it's a really strong point. Like, he needs someone to, he just deserves better. He deserves direction in life, and I'm sure he'll get it at the end, or he'll die. I don't know which. I could see either way. But it feels like for him to go back to Nancy after all of this just feels like a major step backwards for him. And it doesn't feel fair to him at all, because I think that if the arc had been, if they had been setting this up as the arc being, he doesn't deserve Nancy, he goes back, he becomes a better person, he changes, he truly changes, and then he comes back and he and Nancy, and now he deserves Nancy, and they get together, and then they move forward together, I could see that being the arc. But that hasn't been the arc for 3 seasons. So for them to flip that on us now and be like, hey, actually, this is the arc, it feels like you're just going majorly backwards with the character, and I really don't like it. And like I said, I need, Steve deserves better. Steve deserves better than going back to Nancy, who didn't love him, and I don't know. I want him to be able to get over Nancy. That's what he deserves, to be able to get over her and find someone or find something that he feels passionate about, so that he deserves. Anyway, I'm talking about it too much. It's just totally out of left field and super weird. I wish they hadn't done it at all, but like I said, if they're gonna do it, I feel like at least just softly setting it up to maybe be a thing in the future is fine. I guess it just felt like if Nancy and Steve ended up getting together, then it shits on the validity of Nancy and Jonathan. It's like, well, then what, their relationship was nothing. And it also makes Nancy look bad. Like, there's just too many things there. So anyway, we'll see how they handle it. Again, I just wish they didn't do it at all, but that's fine. Steve in general, though, like I said, he's such a good guy. He's such a great mentor. You love that not only, it's actually something I'm just thinking about as I'm saying this, not only is Nancy helping make him a better person, but for him to continue that chain and help make Eddie a better person. I'm a sucker for that kind of stuff. I'm a sucker, like I said when I was talking about Yuri, that might have been a little too fast for me, but I'm a sucker for like believing in the goodness of humanity. I mean, probably my favorite theme ever is rehabilitation and being able to be better than who you've been in the past, which is actually we're going to talk about Max next, which is why I really like how they handled Billy at the end of season 3, actually, which a lot of people I think didn't, but I really did, but I'll talk more specifically about that. But so for Steve to have that effect on Eddie, and I guess Nancy also did because she jumped in after Steve, which affected Eddie, but either way, you know what I'm saying, like for these kids to be actively making everyone around them better was really, really great. I loved it. So anyways, we'll see where that goes. Nancy was also great just being Nancy. She's also a detective, more a journalist reporter, which is cool. I think I felt like some of that, I'll say really quickly, one thing I really, really loved last season that I thought was really well done. Again, going back to the social justice stuff and the way that it's really complex and nuanced, and the way in which her and Jonathan were arguing, and I hadn't liked that plot point for a while, but I realized where it was going, which is that Jonathan being someone from a low-income background, but not someone who understood what it was like for her to be a woman in that workplace, and her being a woman in that workplace and not understanding what it would be, but also from a like a wealthy family and not understanding what it's for him to be like, coming from that background, and them to not understand each other, and for them to both be wrong but both be right, was a really, really interesting. I just had to bring that up from season 3. Because it relates to the last video I made. It's such a really cool breath of fresh air. And it's not the cutting edge of social justice, in media, but I just mean for mainstream big time projects like this, like that was really awesome. And so I don't know. I ended up kind of liking the journalism stuff from last season, and I wish they kind of leaned a little bit more into that because. But anyway, Nancy is also great, just being capable. I don't know. I don't know exactly what her niche quite is because she's kind of everything. She's a detective. She shoots the guns. But yeah, I thought Nancy by herself was fine. I just didn't like the stuff with Steve and Jonathan and Nancy. So, anyways, going on to Max. Episode 4 is as amazing as everyone says. Making Vecna's target be Max gives us major stakes that feel really real and really immediate, even more so I would say than season 1, which is surprising. Like I would say these are probably the highest stakes we've ever felt in Stranger Things, which is really good. And I thought the Dear Billy letter was beautiful, and I think it works. I think that whole plot point, like I was saying earlier, works so much for me because I really believe and I really buy into Billy's redemption. Because how can you redeem someone who's so bad, right? Who's so mean to her and who is a racist, right? Like, he's clearly like the worst. I think besides his dad, probably the worst human character on the show. And it's like, well, what could bring him to actually be redeemed in a way that I, as an audience member, would feel bad for him? And it's like, oh yeah, going through absolute abject supernatural fucking horror, like, right? Like what he went through in season 3 is like, I mean, it's like he went to hell, right? Like it's like he experienced true abject fucking horror. And I'm not saying that that's what you need to experience to be rehabilitated if you're a really bad person, whatever that means. But I'm just saying, like, I buy that at the end of all of that, at the end he sacrifices himself to save 11 and to stop this and to finally make the right choice for once before he dies. It doesn't mean that it doesn't mean he had a complete change of heart, that he was going to be the best person ever. But I really bought that, and I really liked it because I know, I was like, there's no way they're going to redeem this guy. He's just going to be evil forever, But when you're forced to do that scene where he's in the sauna and I've done things and I'm sorry it wasn't me, and it's like, oh shit, okay, Billy, we're seeing the side of Billy. It's like, what kind of desperation can lead someone to really have that kind of change of heart? And it's like, oh yeah, being possessed by a demon and like murdering people against your will while you're sitting in the background watching it happen, like, yeah, that'll probably stop you from like being an abusive racist. Like, it could, you know what I mean? So I don't know, I bought it. And then the fact that he also died at the end too, like, it wasn't like he just came back and got completely reformed and everything. Like, again, I'm not saying you have to die to be reformed, but I'm just saying, like, I think that that was a great way to handle that. So I really bought into Billy's redemption. So I thought that the Dear Billy stuff was really great. And I honestly don't think most of the time, I can't think of her name, it starts with an S, Sadie Sink, that she's that great in this show. I thought she was incredible in this season here and in the later parts of the season. There were a lot of times when she was really incredible, although a lot of times I think she's just good in the show. But yeah, I mean, everything in episode 4 was incredible. Everything at the end when you thought she was going to die was really, really awesome, where she said she didn't want to die, she can't feel anything. She had a lot of great moments. And she's a star in this season. She really is. And the song, running up that hill, running up that hill, running up that road, and if only I could make a deal with God. I mean, come on, that song is a fucking bop. It's a fucking banger. That song is awesome. And the fucking remix at the end of Stranger Things, where they have the Stranger Things theme playing over it, it was so good. It was so good. Really awesome stuff from Max. Let's see, I got a few notes here. I just gotta okay, right. And then what I did not expect at all was, this is just so great, for them to return to the moment where Vecna says you wanted him to die, which even when he said that, I was like, that actually makes sense. Like, he might be right about that. But for them to return after having such a powerful moment with the Dear Billy letter, and to kind of be like, and for her to say, yeah, you were right, was really, really, really cool. I loved that because what it does is it brings up, it kind of raises the gray question that I was just talking about of his redemption. It raises the gray question of whether his redemption was, whether he deserved to be redeemed. And it makes her wrestling with that question as well. You know, like, I think it's just a really interesting way to acknowledge the fact that his redemption is a morally gray question for us. And also to kind of like, to just come back to that in a way that really develops her even more and does something that you just don't expect the show to do. Like, yeah, you were right, Vecna. I'm like, whoa, shit, Vecna was right. Like, and she acknowledges it. It's just, it's really, really good. And then the scene where she dies. I think that her being unable to feel or see was infinitely more horrific than her just dying. And so I think they should have just stayed with that. And then when she died, I was like, oh shit, they really killed her. And then when they brought her back to life, I was like, dude, come on. Like, they didn't need, I'm sorry, they did not need to kill her just to bring her back like that. It was silly, I thought. I think they felt they needed to kill her because they felt they needed someone to die for Vecna's gate to open. And they also, I think, needed 11 to lose by having her die. But I mean, like, if she was like brain dead and like she couldn't, either being brain dead, which would be super chilling, or she was just unable to feel or see anymore, or even one of the two, I think that still is a major, major loss for 11 without her needing to fake die and then come back to life. And then I also think that, I mean, Vecna could have just opened he turned her limbs and shit. I mean, that could open the gate, right? Like, also, we're going to talk about Vecna in a sec, but I don't know. That, either kill her or don't. I don't know. It was weird. But, it was really horrific when she was saying she couldn't see or feel. I mean, I was like, oh my god, that's fucking scary as shit. So Lucas. Lucas. I would have said that Lucas was one of the best actors in season 1. I don't think so anymore. And it's really interesting. This video is already so fucking long. I'm sorry, but you know, I'm still going here. It's really interesting. There's I was watching Karate Kid with my mom the other day, and the 2010 one. And I was shocked at how amazing Jaden Smith is in that movie. I mean, he is an incredible, incredible actor in that movie. Beyond anything that he ever did when he was older, right? Because, I mean, you know, people made fun of Jaden Smith's acting, and I ain't trying to talk bad about him. A lot of respect to you, Jaden, but, you know. But when he was a kid, he was so good. And I was, like, talking about that with my mom, and she said something that was really weird to me that I don't really get. I still don't really get. And she was like, yeah, that was when he was innocent, and before he, you know, basically before he grew up and had to deal with, like, the horrible nature of growing up as a Hollywood kid and, like, becoming a teenager and just, like, I don't know, losing your innocence, basically. And when she said that, I was kind of like, I don't know, I don't really buy that. But there's a lot of times my mom will say things and, like, 3 years later I'll be like, I'll realize it for myself and be like, oh shit, that's what my mom was talking about. So I don't know, I feel like, I don't know, but something with Lucas, it's very much like Jaden Smith, where he was so I mean, he was on the level with can't forget his name, I'm sorry, with Will in season 1. I don't think he was 11. I think 11 was above both of them, but he was on the same level as Will, and now I think he's one of the worst actors in the show. I'm sorry. I think what he's doing this, like, weird kind of squeaky aspect of his voice. I think it's because he needs to make himself seem younger than he is. But I think it really doesn't work. It makes him seem very whiny, and I also just I usually don't really believe him in moments of high emotion anymore, like I did in season 1. That said, I really appreciate, I think it was really nice, the moments of real genuineness throughout the season when Lucas is approaching Max and talking about, like, how he wasn't there and about how much he cares about her. And, like, I think there was a real, it's like I said back in, I mean, it's not as good as it was in season 1 with 11 and Mike, but there's still that same kind of, like, real tenderness and genuineness that comes from him in those scenes, and I think is really, really sweet. And I loved that Lucas and Erica finally get some really good brother-sister scenes together. And at the end, they're even together watching the shit that's happening in front of them at Hawkins. And that was awesome. That was so great. I love that. They haven't gotten that yet. They've still been kind of at odds for a while. They never really gotten just them two together. And they had a lot of good moments at the end there that was really good. And okay, yeah, and I've got this note from when they were from when Lucas and Max were talking about the happy memories, and he was like, "Was I there?" You know, I thought that was cute. I thought that was really well done. The thing I didn't like about the end of Lucas's arc, and really it wasn't as much about Lucas as it is about Jason, but both of them, Jason being the crazy bully guy. I felt for Jason. I understood where Jason was coming from, and you know, he was just someone who had seen things that pretty much broke his brain. And so for that to kind of just devolve into a slugfest, and for Lucas to initiate that slugfest instead of talking him down, or at least trying harder to talk him down, or at least, I don't know. I didn't love that. They never, basically they just punched each other until the jock happened to die. And that was kind of just it. And I wanted more out of a resolution of Jason's arc. I felt like what Jason had been going through was really compelling. And he was crazy and like not a good dude, but like you really got where he was coming from. And I don't know exactly what that would have looked like, but I just feel like he was probably too far gone for Lucas to talk him down, especially when we have Yuri being talked down right in the same like vein, in the same part of the episode. So I'm not saying that, but I guess I'm just saying like, I don't know, some sort of actual philosophical debate there, as opposed to like them kind of talking for a bit and then them never really coming to an understanding, and Lucas just deciding to tackle him. And Lucas is like, I thought I wanted to be like you, but actually I don't want to be like you. And I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, it's not. He thinks that you're in a cult. Like, I mean, he's wrong, but I didn't feel like he was so bad that was sort of the triumphant moment that the show tried to make it think it was. I don't know. I wasn't really feeling that. Let's talk about Robin. I've already talked about this, really, but just the character assassination. Complete and total, utter character assassination of Robin. Complete disrespect to our girl here. Once again, last season, Robin's number one word was capable, okay? She might, I think it's interesting to say, you know, maybe when she's not at the ice cream shop, at her job, talking mainly to like a lot of little kids, you know, people where she's not really having a human connection with them. She's having like a very fake job connection with them. She's taken outside of that context into more uncomfortable situations. Maybe she's a little awkward, especially around people that she's interested in. But to have her defining character trait be that she's a total spaz all the time, and all she does is just freak out about everything, and she's Robin was the worst. She was so annoying all the time. And even her great moment where she got the guy at the asylum to let them go visit Victor Cruel, I thought that was really good. I thought that was a really good moment. But even that was completely, it was like her, what her tool in her toolbox was her ability, was the fact that she was fucking maniacal. Like, it wasn't, she was able to harness that mania, I think. But it wasn't, that's not who she was last season. She was a lot of times she was like really down to earth, actually, and she was very smart, and she was, I was really, really sad with how they treated her. And maybe I want to go back and rewatch season 3 and see maybe I missed this part of her, but like you know, for example, when Nancy was saying like, yo, this is a long shot lead, and then she's like, oh, people got murdered in the exact same way, and we basically have no other leads anyway, really. And for her to be like, oh, you said this was a long shot, but this was like a total sweat in the dot, blah, 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 long shot. And I'm like, no, it's really not. Like, you're just kind of like freaking out about nothing. And for her to just continually talk, I don't know. I was really upset with it, because I thought that Robin last season was such a great new character that they had introduced, and was like, wow, like I really like her. And the twist at the end where actually she wasn't interested in Steve, and she was actually lesbian, I thought was really, really well done, and was really subtle, and was really truthful. I mean, and Steve in this show calls her a super klutz at the last 2 episodes at one point. And I'm like, yeah, exactly. She was not a fucking super klutz last year. That is not who she was. And I also thought her conclusion with the other girl was a little cliche, a little ham-fisted. And otherwise, I thought pretty well, last season was a really well told story about a lesbian character. It felt too rainbow. I mean, it's kind of not rainbow in the LGBT sense. Rainbow in the sense of like happy ending rainbow. Sorry, that was a little insensitive. You know, rainbows and butterflies type deal. Like, oh yay, and now this girl's exactly like me, and she has the exact same problem that I have. I don't know. It was just too much. I was like, I don't believe that this is really happening. This is, I like giving Robin someone at the end where she finally does make this connection she's been trying to make all season. I thought it was a little, like I said, too much, a little too much. They could have been a little more different. She was just like, oh, you're literally the exact same person as me, saying almost exactly the same words that I say about my problems. I don't know. Erica's awesome. You love Erica. She was so fucking awesome in season 3. She was great here too. I like that she gets to have fun with the crew in the beginning. I was a little mad she was out of the action in the middle, but I really like that she comes back like right near the end. There's so many characters. You can take time off with Erica. As you know, she's there in the beginning, she's there at the end. She's great. I love when she says crit hit at the end there when she hits him in the balls. Love Erica. She's amazing. So let's talk about Vecna. Vecna deaths are cool as shit, obviously. Vecna's super cool. I love the twist. I think that they did a lot of disservice to the characters in the plot I talked about earlier because of the twist. That said, the twist was fucking awesome. I think they could have done the twist without doing those things, but the twist was fucking awesome. I did not see it coming. I guess that the son of Victor Cruel was the person who caused those deaths, and I guess that the guy talking to 11 in the lab was probably 1. I did not guess that those two were the same person, the son of Victor Cruel and 1, and I did not guess that those two were the same as Vecna. So really caught me off guard. I literally paused it and I was like, holy fucking shit. Like I freaked out. So that was really well done. They're going to have to explain though why it takes so long for Vecna to kill another person. Like what? Like it's like, oh, he has one more kill before he literally gets everything he wants. And he's just kind of hanging out and just waiting for Max to just like be ready. Like what? That was crazy to me. But little plot points like that don't matter as much to me as they probably used to when I was, I don't know, whatever. As long as the stories are compelling, I can let that one slide. The thing that I'll say about Vecna, the one thing, well, I've already talked about, they spent too much time with flashbacks with him, but that's more of an 11 issue. But I like that he's the Mind Flayer, because it's great that the final villain is someone with a personal connection to the heroes. Multiple of the heroes, someone that we've already been established, we know who he is, he's scary, and he's going to come back with a vengeance, we know his plan. I like that he's a final villain in that sense, but I think that they really did him a major disservice because they already kind of set him up as being a lesser guy to the Mind Flayer, like the Mind Flayer's general as Dustin instead, and we found out later that didn't end up being the case. He just ended up being someone from Earth, but still, we have this impression that this Vecna stuff is going to get solved or be connected in some way to season 5, but the Mind Flayer is still the big bad hanging out in the background. So for him to just be like, oh yeah, I'm actually the Mind Flayer, it's kind of like, oh, well, it just kind of feels like a deflated balloon, you know what I mean? And I'm kind of like, I don't know, I think that there's a way to make that twist kind of really cool and exciting instead of kind of being like, oh, okay, well, I thought the Mind Flayer was going to be like more badass than you, but you're just the final villain. Okay, I thought you were just the season 4 villain, but okay, I guess you're just the final villain. Okay, fine, I guess. Also, I don't feel like it really meshes with the rest of the show. I mean, he's got like a grudge against 11, but I don't know, I have to go back and watch, but it felt like that grudge previously was not like this deep. I mean, his literal major grudge in life is against 11. His one goal is to like stop 11. When he was possessing Will, he didn't try to kill 11 or he didn't try to capture her. I mean, there's just maybe he didn't think he could beat her, but no, that's not true. No, I'm not buying it. I'm not buying that 11, when the Mind Flayer was targeting her in season 3, it felt pretty clear to me that was because she had closed the gate in season 2. And so maybe if I go back, and I'm not going to, obviously I just rewatched all of it, but I don't know. It doesn't feel like that. It feels like that kind of comes out of nowhere. That said, I like it. I just wish it had been set up more. Argyle. Fucking hilarious. The best part of that whole arc, because Jonathan, Will, Mike, boring as shit. Honestly, Argyle, and I like Sandy. I do. The part with her house was super fucking weird. I didn't know what the hell's going on with that. It makes no sense to me, but Argyle was awesome. There's so many great quotes from him this season that were great. Enzo and Yuri, meh, never cared about the Russia stuff. Sheriff Powell, I mean, again, one of the things I like about Stranger Things is that they broke the cliche of the police chief who didn't actually know what was going on and was very incapable in dealing with supernatural stuff. And so to kind of go backwards and just have like the sort of cliche sheriff, again, it takes Hopper out of what we liked Hopper doing, like, I don't know. I never liked his character all the way back in season 1. I never liked either of the two deputies. I didn't like them like as people, maybe. You know what I mean? Like, they were okay as characters, but it's like, oh, I don't like that guy. Like, but I think that's kind of the point. I don't know. I think we needed to. I think I needed to be a little more sympathetic to him to kind of root for him more because I wasn't sympathetic to him sort of at all because of the last few seasons. So that's it for all the characters. This is probably such a long video. Oh my god, I don't even know how long it is at this point. But final thoughts. My major issue with the ending is I think that this season desperately needed to commit to all the cards being on the table. Everybody knows the earth has opened up into the pits of hell, and everybody is still talking about earthquakes. It was annoying when they were saying that there was a gas leak or whatever that killed Barb, but I was like, I get it. It was annoying when there was a fire that killed everybody in season 3, and they're saying it was this fire that killed Hopper and all this stuff. Okay, I get it. At this point, that's got to end. Because it's really exciting as you get to the end of a show. When you get to the, oh yeah, the White Walkers, everybody knows about them now, right? Or like, you know, the Walter White as Heisenberg. It's exciting when these things finally happen because it changes the entire status quo of what's going on. And it feels like we desperately needed that to go into the final season. That radically altered status quo where, and I was saying this in a comment on Reddit, where Mike's dad has to learn what a Demogorgon is, right? Like, come on, like I needed that, and I think that, for example, like that would have made the scene with Dustin and Eddie's dad make more sense because Eddie's dad, he's like, oh, he gave his life. What the fuck do you mean he gave his life for Hawkins? I guess he's just supposed to know that some shit was going down that he didn't know about, some like crazy shit, and it wasn't just an earthquake. But I don't know. It just feels like I was really, really upset after being so happy with how this was going and seeing all that shit open up. I knew, by the way, that this season was going to end with exactly what the vision was and all of everything opening up. They were going to beat Vecna, kinda, but like all this shit was going to go crazy to lead us in the next season. But I was so sure that all the cards would be on the table. Everybody would know about the Upside Down, and that's the new status quo going into season 5. And that's such an exciting possibility. But I can't believe they didn't do that. It just feels so... I don't know, man. And it doesn't... most importantly, the characters that I really want to see most know about the Upside Down are the kids' parents, besides Joyce and Hopper. There's like a kind of a cliche, I guess, or a trope, maybe you could say, in movies and TV where... And I can't even really think of like an example, to be honest, but like it's kind of like, I don't know, where like Aunt May maybe who isn't quite down with you being Spider-Man still ride or dies for you because she loves you, and like she doesn't fully know what's going on, but she's gonna have your motherfucking back. You know what I mean? And like I need that moment from the parents. And you got, once again, I'm putting you on notice for this. Okay, we have had 4 seasons of these parents not knowing what the fuck is going on, and it makes sense, and I'm not upset about that. But I need, before this show is over, for Will's mom, who does really love him. I really like her character, actually. She really does love him. She's a little oblivious to what's going on, but like I think that her choice not to have sex with Billy was cool. She loves her family, and I think that I want to see that love, just like we get to see with Joyce. I want to see that love personified supernaturally. I'm interested to see how the dad would react, but even with him though, right? Like, and like there was a part of me that wanted, for example, the mob in this season, that wanted the parents, not knowing anything about what the fuck is going on, to still ride or die for their kids, because I just love that in TV and movies, right? Where like you still don't quite know, you're not quite in on it, but you go because those are your kids, and you know that you got their back no matter what. You know, like I just need those moments from all the parents. So I'm really hoping that we get that next season. And moreover, I'm sick of the earthquakes and the fires. End it. Come on, stop it. So that's my major issue. The final shot / scene where all the ash is falling down might have been indicating that that's what's about to happen, but I don't think it was, because if that was about to happen, why wouldn't they just have everybody already know that it wasn't an earthquake at the end? It seems like they're doing that because they still want everybody to not know the truth. But I don't know. Maybe I heard there might be a time skip, so I don't really know how they're doing that. Last thing I'll say, Stranger Things for me as a show has always been about everyday people, like I said, everyday people using the everyday skills they have to beat supernatural threats, which is awesome and beautiful. And it's also consistently relies on these characters making these 1 in a million bets that something they do might maybe just happen to save the people that they love so dearly. so often, right? Like the kids in season 1 and Joyce and Hopper are all like trying to do the impossible on the 1 in a million chance that it actually could help. In this season, them choosing to go back into the prison, just because maybe if they affect the Demogorgons in there, it'll save their kids, and it ends up doing it. I mean, there's a sense to which like it could seem very convenient, but it's like kind of the theme of the show almost, or a theme of the show, and I really like that. So I don't know. I just wanted to. There's so many times. I mean, the show is built on that one premise because the kids are like, well, maybe if we do this and do this, like going to, maybe if we go to Sandy's, then she'll be able to get to the internet. Maybe if we just do this, and it's like it always works out, and it doesn't always like work out perfectly. There's always like so many things along the way, which makes it feel truthful. But the fact that it always that 1 in a million chance pays off for some reason, I don't know why, it just never feels wrong to me. It always feels like, yeah. It paid off. They did it. They saved the people they loved. So, I don't know. That's just a final thought. I cannot believe that I'm reviewing this show positively. After the first 7 episodes, I was so upset. But here we are. What a great season. I mean, really, like, I can't say what a great season, but I'm just as happy with it as I was with the rest of them, which I was like, hey, there are some issues, but I'm happy with this. And I feel like they have a lot going into season 5 that they can work with. So, man, it feels good to put up a positive review on my channel for once. All this Marvel reviews. Miss Marvel is coming soon. When that show ends, oh my god. I have scathing thoughts about that shit. Also, I haven't started watching The Boys yet, but I think it ends next week. So I will be watching that and try to do a review when that comes out too. Trying. We'll see. So anyways, thanks for watching, guys. And, like, comment, subscribe. Do those things. I haven't slept.